What's up, guys? It's back, Words with Friends podcast. Another Monday, another Words with Friends podcast, of course. And you guys can support the Words with Friends podcast if you're getting value from the conversations with some of these artists, entrepreneurs, and just great people in general. You can give a tip to the Words with Friends podcast at patreon.com/Jabari. Again, that's patreon.com/Jabari. And that ensures that we can keep the podcast coming to you each and every Monday. And now I'm in New York. I've been working on this Sprite campaign, and so obviously I'm trying to get a bunch of Words with Friends podcasts in, and it is my pleasure to introduce Mike Radparvar of Holstee to the Words with Friends podcast. Thank you, man, for being here.
Well, thanks, man. Glad to have you back in New York for a little bit.
Yes, it's good, man. I always miss New York, man. Even though I'm back every month, it's man, you gotta miss this place, man. Especially when it's warm. Mm-hmm. When it's warm,
oh, man.
New York there's nothing better than it.
I feel like the city literally changes. The people who are here, totally, their attitude changes, and myself included. You go from being like kind of pissed off at the weather in the world a little bit to just being, people outside flying kites, people on skateboards. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good time, man. Nothing like summer in New York. So, Mike, introduce yourself and let the people know what it is that you do.
Okay. So my name is Michael Radparvar, like Jabari mentioned. I co-founded a company called Holstee about 5 years ago with my brother Dave and our best friend Fabian. And together we wanted to create a company. We wanted to actually, more than a company, we wanted to create a lifestyle. And that's what we did with Holstee. We didn't have, I feel like this story is becoming more and more common, but 5 years ago that was kind of rare, where you start a company where you didn't have that much experience in necessary in creating products, which is what we were doing. What we had set out to do, at least. What we did know we wanted to do was we wanted to build something that kind of shook shit up a little bit in some sense, and mostly for ourselves, and kind of wanted to reflect that out to the world. And so we got the name Holstee because the first thing we ever created was a t-shirt with a holster position pocket on it, and that's where we got our name from. And everything kind of stemmed from there. And about the same time, we also decided to pen or sit down and talk about what does it mean to build a successful life. And when we were defining success, we meant in non-financial terms. So what does it mean to live a life that you're truly proud of, and that what are the kind of key values that you would kind of look back and be like, damn, I did live a good life. It wasn't necessarily what did I do, but how was I living that life. And so we had a lot of conversations around that, and we actually decided to just write down exactly what that was for us. And so we wrote that down, put it on our website, and kind of continued with building Holstee. And from the product side, we went through a lot of iterations. We made a lot of different things. So we went from creating these t-shirts, and at that time, also 5 years ago, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was really hard to source a t-shirt that was made in a positive way, maybe using recycled or organic cotton. That was actually a good fit. At that time, it was just like everything was super boxy, not great cut. And so we had to, if we wanted to build this company, we'd have to start sourcing our own fabric. We'd have to learn how to work directly with kind of production facilities, creating our own pattern. And so we had a lot of learn on the go.
Yeah.
And even the material that we were buying was super expensive. So that first product we were making was t-shirts, and when we learned that about 20-30% of the fabric they were buying was just going to get cut and go to waste, we're like, okay, well, what else can we make from that? And so we kind of had this evolution of other products coming out of it. And so from there we started making these kind of from the scraps. We made these like neck handkerchiefs, and our product line started to grow. We started to experiment with different things. We were making wallets. We were making a lot of different accessories. We even had a dress that we designed, and we started curating products from other designers. And I would say a lot of those things helped to guide and form our company, but I don't know that any one of them necessarily caught on. But about the same time, about a year or so into our company and building Holstee, one thing did catch on and resonated really hard, and that was that stemmed from that discussion we had on our first week of starting, which was the Holstee Manifesto. It had literally sat silently on our site for about 6 months.
Hold on. So you had the manifesto was actually as it is now. It
was sitting as text actually for a very long time.
Was it like the About Us section?
Yeah, it was in the About Us section. It was a little bit buried also, and we just saw people start to respond very positively to it. And we had a recommendation from a friend that why don't we design this and put into some nice typography or typeface behind it. And so we did that, and people started to kind of get drawn to Holstee, to that message. And literally, I don't know, I feel like it happened in a very short period of time, but it just took off.
Oh yeah,
took a life of its own, and we literally did not know what to make of it, and we didn't realize it was happening until about, I'd say, a couple weeks in, because we had never written anything about us or about Holstee on the actual image that people were sharing everywhere. So we would go to these Tumblr posts that had thousands of reblogs or whatever, and people were just sharing it. And we once we saw, we were really excited when we saw that, and we were like, oh shit, no one actually knows that this is us.
Yeah.
And so that was a really good learning.
And at this point, you guys had already designed it, and it was in that particular typeface. It didn't have a Holstee logo.
Didn't have anything about Holstee on it anywhere. So this thing is circulating the world at this point.
For those that don't know, can you just say what's on the manifesto really quick?
Okay, so this is a good challenge.
Do you have it memorized?
So let me see. This is your life. Do what you love and do it often. If you don't like something, change it. If you don't like your job, quit. If you're looking for the love of your life, stop. They'll be waiting for you when you start doing the things that you love. All emotions are beautiful. Stop overanalyzing. Life is simple. And essentially, life is about the people that you meet and things that you create with them. So go out and start creating. Life is short. Live your dream and share your passion.
Nice. And so this is a thing that was on blogs, people's every all kinds of social networks.
It was just literally, I mean, we would hear crazy story after crazy story of how this was being shared. We were getting translations sent to us from people around the world.
Yeah.
Saying this resonated with me so hard that I wanted to share it with my friends in China, in Bangladesh, and Portugal, and Brazil. There was even a company that is almost the U.S. equivalent of H&M in Brazil that printed it on T-shirt. I mean, people were just didn't know where it came from, thought it was an amazing message. There was, people were kind of co-opting it as their own also, which in some sense were well, this is such a positive message. It's beautiful for it to get out into the world. But people, we were just kind of floored by it. And we didn't even, for a large part of this, we didn't even have a product that was around this. We were very hesitant to even print it as a poster, which was, we were getting literally requests every single day that people wanted that as a poster. And we're no, man, we're just a t-shirt company. We just want to focus on making these t-shirts and some of these other products that we're making. We're not a printing company. We kind of said that for a very long time until we got to a point and said, well, why the hell not?
Yeah.
Right? This is such a positive thing. People are coming to us for this. And if we're going to print it, let's do it in a really beautiful way, in the way that we like to make products. So we started to learn about different printing methods, and letterpress printing was a method that came up over and over again. It's literally one of the oldest forms of printing, where you have these really massive machines. You have a plate made that makes a dent impression on the paper. You generally use a thicker stock paper, and it creates just a beautiful print. And so that's how we started to print them. And we did a very small batch, and we put them up on our site. And again, we had no idea what the demand was around this, and we never had a product that sold out at this point.
Yeah.
But we put those up, and we were back ordered forever.
I can imagine.
And we were literally shuffling hundreds and hundreds of these a week to the post office, and we just didn't have, because we didn't have a system set up for shipping out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So people at the post office were kind of going crazy because they would see us coming in with our hand truck of posters that we're hand rolling in the office, and so that was kind of the beginning of what Holstee is today.
How did you begin to sort of capitalize or at least try to off those posts and things that were just already flowing out there? Did you guys immediately redesign it and slap a logo on it, or what?
We didn't redesign the manifesto. The manifesto hasn't actually changed. We only made one change to it, and we changed It used to say wear your passion, and now it's share your passion.
Okay.
But since day one, it hasn't changed at all. We did add a line crediting the designer and mentioning Holstee at the bottom.
Yep.
But we wanted to keep it very, very simple. But we just realized that was really what was resonating with people, and that's what we were all the while we were kind of building those different product lines. We found that people were coming to Holstee for a very specific reason. It was very not necessarily age range. Like the age range was very broad that was coming to Holstee, but it was a certain type of personality that was being drawn.
Yeah.
And that I would define as, I don't know, people who really give a shit, that worry about that are concerned with this idea of like going through life and being awake and not just being
conscious, man.
And not just being on autopilot, grabbing life by the horns, realizing that probably the worst disease that we're facing today could be apathy more than anything. Just like kind of going about and just being like, who gives a shit about what happens, about like the decision that I'm making today. I'm talking about people who realize that the decisions that we make it's all connected, right? And it has ripple effects throughout the world. When you're making a purchasing decision, when you're making deciding what to buy, what to eat, what to do, even how you treat the taxi driver, all those things that have ripple effects. And we're kind of slowly been building that online community. And I guess if you fast forward to today, what we've done is we've now tried to really just sharpen our focus and build destination for Holstee, and for us to have for people to come to Holstee for a specific purpose. And once we've established that very, very, very well, then we'll slowly get to the point where we want to branch off into other things once again.
Yeah.
But we for too long we're just kind of doing a hodgepodge of things, and what we found was that people would come to Holstee, have a very positive association. That's fantastic. But what they didn't know is exactly what it was that Holstee was doing or offering. A lot of people thought we were just a nonprofit for a very long time. Technically we were a nonprofit because we were actually making that much money. But at the end of the day, we need to do something that keeps the lights on, right? And so we need people to know that there's multiple reasons for coming to Holstee, and for what we're hoping to do. And so our product line is growing, and for the first time, we actually have a really talented head of product and product designers on the team. And so we're definitely elevating the types of products that we're bringing out. But at the same time, we also want to build off of those experiential components, and that means how do we build a community that's not just 40,000 fans on Facebook or whatever, but that's actually people who truly feel that we all belong to something. Creating a space where you can go and, people actually matter in that environment, and not just people aren't more than likes. And, it's way too easy to get caught up on that, especially when you're running an e-commerce platform or shop where all your interactions are happening online. Because so much of our company, focuses on doing things offline. And so we started to build out a lot of other components where, for example, we're hosting a monthly dinner series at our office where we bring in local chefs that come in. We also do something every Sunday, and this is all happening in Brooklyn. So for anyone who's in Brooklyn, 100% you're welcome to drop by. We'd love to have you.
Yes.
Because we want to create this kind of community type environment with just having speaker series, discussions. We want to create a place where people can have those types of discussions that really help us remember what's important to us.
Yeah. Mike, it's interesting you say all this because, traditionally companies and the success of companies, has been about obviously profit, the bottom line, making money. But it seems as if, of course, like you said, you have to keep the lights on, you have to sell a product, you have to do certain things, but it seems like you're offering and trying to do things now where there might not be a dollar sign immediately attached to it, but there's something deeper than that. Talk a little bit about that and how and why you even, the company has decided to do that.
I think that for us, that's just been a very natural part of our DNA. We were one part activist organization, one part just love creating positive impact through design and through products, and products that are really made in a very intentional, deliberate way, asking questions, asking why is it made that way, why is it out of that material. We are our own toughest critics when it comes to that stuff. And I think to complement that, if we want to really build a company that's around, all those things that we're saying, I don't think that it could ever just be a product company. And I don't know if there's any one of us on the team that would be satisfied with that. We want to build something that really, truly has an impact on people's lives. And that's why the first thing that we did was create this manifesto that helped us to define life in non-financial terms. It's so easy. That's the default method for success, right? It's like, how much did you make at the end of the year? How much did you... And
what
it's hard not...
What is your job title?
Right. What's your job title? I mean, people just want to know those facts and figures without actually having a true qualitative discussion of what are you actually doing? How are you living your life?
It's I hate that question, what do you do? Because it's like, what you do as a job is so much different than what you do in life. You know what I mean? And so like when people always introduce themselves or as like, I am this, and it's like, you are not just a financial analyst. You know what I mean? Like
what type of person are you?
Yeah, you have a life. That's what I want to know about. So okay, continue.
No, I think that we're also get fed up with that whole idea, and it's just, and we're 100% have been contributors to that in the past, and probably but there's so many things that that kind of that encourage that type of behavior in today's society that's hard to avoid it. When you think about it, we're set up to go from one urgent notification to the next urgent notification. All of those things are just simply distractions, and they're distractions from the things that are really important to you a lot of times. And it's hard to cut through that clutter. And so our hope is to create something that can help balance that. And it's not an easy task to do, because a lot of times we're using those exact same tools that prevent you from getting there, right? Like we're active on Twitter, we're active on Instagram, but at the same time it's like, okay, well, what at least is the content or the things that we're putting out in the world, and how are we supplementing that offline in real world scenarios? And I don't know, we're trying to find that balance as a company, and it's certainly not easy when you're trying to balance impact with bottom line, because just last night we hosted a dinner here and someone asked me, well, do you think that you're more an activist company or more of a company that is impact more important for you guys, or is the business side more important? And this is coming from someone who's like, if I could just run 90% activist in an ideal world and nothing, anything could work out and I could definitely not fail, I would 100% do that. But the reality of the situation is one requires the other just as much, right? Absolutely. So it's got to be a 50-50, I feel like. But it gets dangerous when the pendulum starts to swing too hard in either way. And so we are constantly trying to keep that in balance of having both the things that we're conscious of, what is our impact as aspiring as social enterprise, but also doing things that make sure that we can keep the lights on, keep our team employed, and continue to grow our impact, because the impact has a very clear correlation to us as a business at the end of the day.
It's the same sort of thing, I think, with myself, and I can really relate to this because as an artist, I have been a struggling artist, man. I've been like, well, I just gotta make this thing, but I got to get somebody else to finance it, and you have to, prove to somebody that they should give you money to make the art that you want to produce. But it's like, that is one route of doing things. But me personally, I had to take a step back and say, look, I can't just rely on that anymore. And I had to get my business chops up, and I had to start producing things that were of value that people would want to purchase and buy, and create sustainable businesses around, the elements of me as an individual that could fund my creative projects, and that could fund my things, and I can, pay for my apartment and car and things like that. Because if you are an artist or if you're a creator and you cannot create, that is, to me, the worst place to be in life. I mean, when an artist has restraints, man, I mean, you feel like you're trapped in a bubble, and that's a place that I didn't want to be at. But again, it was I had to learn how to sell things essentially, man, to be able to overcome that.
And that's unfortunate, because a lot of times I feel those things don't come supernatural to really remarkable artists.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, and I don't know. I mean, I could go off on a whole tangent about how like that has created a really unfair paradigm where the people who are producing the value are not getting the most value out of it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I totally hear you, and I think that's a remarkable thing about what you're doing is you're balancing the art of what you're doing with the business side, and I have nothing but like respect for being able to do that effectively, because that's a very hard thing to do, and to keep them both as equal priorities.
Yeah, man. It's a work in progress, but it's doing all right now. You mentioned something earlier about going from selling T-shirts and doing other things, but really understanding when to shift with what the demand and what the market may sort of ask from you. Do you watch Silicon Valley? Mm-hmm. The show on HBO?
No.
I think it was the last episode, and it was basically the company is a compression company.
Okay.
And they the sort of like Google-esque company stole their idea and made a better version of their product. And the I think the head of business development character, he was like, okay, now we have to pivot, and he kept saying that word, and so that just reminded me of what you were talking about. Doing something a little different than what you intended on doing, but still,
totally
shifting.
I think that we have totally become comfortable with this. Pivot is synonymous with like screw up.
Yeah.
It could be synonymous with like lessons or learnings, whatever you want to call it. We've learned how to take those learnings and build off of them and build in the direction that those things feel right. And I think that it's one part looking at numbers and one part looking at looking for what feels right for you as a company. And a lot of those changes have not been easy. Like when we decided to stop making T-shirts, I mean, right now we just temporarily, like we put them in the legacy portion of our website. That was a hard thing to do, and for people who knew us when we started, that was like, so you guys are totally not doing that anymore. It was hard for them. It's hard to explain that we're doing something differently now, and we may come back to that eventually, but it's on hold at the moment.
Yeah.
It's never an easy thing to do, but I think that when you're starting a company, that's one of the most important things to realize is the idea that you start with, it might not be the idea that you end up with or where you go, and that's like the most likely scenario is that your company or your concept is going to evolve. But just being okay with that and never forgetting that A, you started this for the journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And B, never forget why you did it in the first place. And I think those two things, the fact that we sat down and wrote down why we were doing it with the manifesto in the beginning helped us tremendously as a company because it bridged a lot of gaps for us.
Yeah. What is it like now in terms of where do you want Holstee to go? And you were talking about some of the team members now. Just talk a little bit about expanding a company, and now not just having it be your brother and your friend, and you have a sort of like you assume this responsibility because you now have a team to sort of look after.
That changes things a lot. I think that we've gone through, to be totally honest, we've gone through a lot of transitions at Holstee and how we operate. When we started, it was just me, Dave, and Fabian. We were doing everything. We were also making all the decisions. And recently we had a realization that kind of really came upwards from the team. And, we've been bringing on more and more talented people, and we realized that we were actually still trying to do everything. We were making all decisions. We wanted to be involved in every single thing. And at the end of the day, that's holding us back for being able to do other things that could continue to grow Holstee. But it's also allowing people to have the autonomy to make decisions and really run with something. Yeah. And giving the creativity to do that. I mean, once we made that shift, that opened up so much, and people on our team have really embraced that. And I think that requires a certain type of team and people for that to work well, and feel very fortunate that A, we got that feedback and we acted on it early, and B, that we have a type of team that can do that, because it's very uncomfortable to give up control of things, but it's also very liberating.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you see, what are some goals that you have now, and where do you want Holstee to be, in the next few years?
Talk about this a lot. And there's not, I can't say there's like a very definite concrete answer, but I think in the very big picture, we want Holstee to be the iconic brand or company of the 21st century. The brand that kind of stands for things that are becoming more and more, we're realizing are more and more important for society today. A brand that truly balances those aspects of business and impact. And that will likely be still product, but it will probably branch more and more into this experiential side. Which we're going to be doing, we're going to be exploring a lot. And, that's been everything from, continuing to grow the events that we're doing here. And we're doing Side Hustle Sunday. So every Sunday we have yoga, followed by co-working. People can come and just work on whatever their side hustle might be. And we just open up our space for anyone who wants to do that. All the way to, we have this crazy idea of buying land, a piece of land outside of every major city in the US or in the world where people can escape to just to have the opportunity to reconnect, and that could be, maybe it's one part summer camp, one part kibbutz where people are contributing to the active lifestyle of it, and one part hotel. And we're that whole idea is still very much an evolution, but we think that there's definitely a need and a desire for a space like that. We felt it for ourselves, of just when it's great to be in the city again, but having that balance of being able to just get the hell out. Sometimes you just want to get out.
Absolutely.
And have opportunities to just have either peace, quiet, or kind of change it up and reconnect with nature specifically for us has been something that we've desired a lot. So as we continue to grow and we're moving much more in kind of a home goods and building out other things, other products that might exist in different parts of your life or in your home, that can make a lot of sense to go in that direction. Start building that out also.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. I mean, just from seeing some of the stuff in here, man, the design and just even the aesthetic of the office and this table, this wood, it's so nice. Man. And it's very simple. And I like that. I like to keep things simple.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, my all this wood is made. All the tables here, I have to give a shout out to my brother Dave. He built pretty much every single table in our office from wood that he sourced from this reclaimed wood from this lumber yard. And yeah, this office has definitely been a labor of love.
Yeah, man, nice.
Thank you.
Well, Mike, let the people know where they can find more about Holstee, and where can they go on social networks and all that good stuff, man.
We're Holstee.com, HOLSTEE.com. We're Holstee on all different channels, whatever medium that you prefer, where you can find us there. And really, for those guys anyone here who's either in New York, in Brooklyn, or visiting, drop us a line. We have stuff going on all the time. We're just really interested and fostering a community that gives a shit. Or that is focused on things that really are important to us today, and we want to facilitate those discussions, and we want to do everything that we can to move the important things forward.
Absolutely. You guys heard it. Holstee.com. Seriously, some amazing products, man, and I'm really fortunate enough to been speaking with you for the past 30 minutes, dude. You guys know, like I said, every Monday, Words with Friends, soundcloud.com/Jabari, and of course, leave a comment in the iTunes store and leave a review. That helps out a lot. And again, leave a tip for the Words with Friends podcast if you're enjoying it. Patreon.com/Jabari. I'll see you guys next Monday with another interview. All right, peace.